Well, hello and welcome to another live show. It's a Friday and I can see we've got some folks here in chat. If you are in chat, say hello. So I can see who has joined us for this evening. Now, we did a poll in the community tab of YouTube. And that poll said that we're going to create a character from scratch, as well as look at some other techniques for creating characters, which include using a map as to helping define our character. So I've got a trusty book right here, and I will be using this book to create the character in. It's going to be handwritten. You are going to be contributing, as always. You know exactly what I mean. I love interacting with you folks. You always have such interesting ideas. And so we are ready to go. Now, what's all of this made of? Well, of course, our Kickstarter, which I'll just grab the link for because I completely forgot. Our Kickstarter is currently running, which is the player's guide. You can see it here on the side as I'm busy chatting. A player's guide, how to be a great player, is busy running at the moment. We've already broken our goal. We've already unlocked our first stretch goal. And I think we're about, let me just double check here quickly as I scroll through the website. Yes, we are currently a mere £2,500 away from our second stretch goal. So that's very exciting, I think anyway. And so yes. That's where we are. I will post up the link in chat right now for everybody. If you haven't had a look at it, remember financial security before gaming. And so we're going to be using the book to create a character. We're going to start going through the book because the book is, of course, already finished being written, which I think is always very exciting. As soon as I find someone with a credit card, I will back you as well. Well, that's good, provided that they, you know, are happy for you to use their credit card. So there is that. Anyway, hello everybody. It's good to see you. Lance, we've got Solor, we've got Charlie, we've got Link, the vampire. Oh, interesting. We've got Dragon. And of course, big congratulations to all of our winners of the books from Monday when we did the live launch. So that's something. I've reached out to some of them and have started the process of sending off their books. We're not giving away books today. We might do so in the future if we get enough viewers. You know, there's always that bottom line, and the finance goblin was always like, "Wow, we've got to do this. We've got to do this." Da 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 da. All right. So what are we going to be doing? Well, I've got a few things that we're going to be doing. I've got this map. This is a map that I made quite a while ago. Actually, I think there's a video on me making this map. This is Arkenvale and Arken Surrounds. I was using this literally on Tuesday and Wednesday for my Mage Hunter game, which will be streamed on the channel. Will come out on the channel in a couple of weeks' time, sometime, maybe over December. So bear that in mind. So we'll be using this as our reference map to see how that's going to help us create a character. And of course, we're going to be using the practical guide to becoming a great player as our source of inspiration. So, of course, I will not just talk to some stranger. That would be robbery. Well, again, not if you say, hey, can I have your credit card details for no particular reason? That would be conning, I guess. I don't know. So let's jump straight into it. Now, there are so many different ways in which you can begin to create characters. And I don't think there is one right way or one wrong way. I think there is just the way that works for you. And I think you'll agree with me on that one. So where do we start? Well, I think the fundamental place to start, and this is even before you've even had a concept, is what system are we playing? There's no point in daydreaming about this magnificent science fiction-based warrior if you're going to be playing in a fantasy campaign. The same argument, however, could be that you go, well, I want to play a character who's a bit bookish, who's trying to find out something about their parents, as they've got a dark secret and they want to find out about it. There's absolutely no setting involved there, and it can be absolutely malleable. So I would contend that you start with your concept. What is your concept? What's your basic idea? And it should be along the lines of, and if this sounds familiar to you GMs, it should be. And I've got my notes up on the screen up here. That's why I'm sort of looking off into the distance. I'm not sort of waxing lyrical and thinking about the future. No, I'm reading my sentences up there. So if this sentence sounds familiar, by the way, should be familiar. So someone wants to do something with their life or is seeking to find out what they should do with their life, and they're having difficulty doing it. Again, we go back to that single sentence that we always have. Someone wants something bad and is having difficulty getting it. Someone wants something badly. This is the character that we're creating. They want something badly. So we've got to figure out what it is that they want, what do they want badly, and why they're having difficulty getting it. Because if they don't have any difficulty getting it, well, then there's no story. So, hello people in chat. Please like this stream real quick. Thank you, says Salah. Absolutely. Well, if you like the stream, then hit that like button. It really does help the channel. Right. So, we need to start off with a concept. And that means you. We need a concept from you. So, all 29 of you, those of you that are currently watching, what is your concept? Someone wants to do something with their life. What is it? So don't think, oh, they want to become the greatest astronomer ever. Maybe think more along the lines of they want to reach the stars. They want to be better than what they currently are. Think in sort of more nebulous terms in terms of characters. We'll take 3 character concepts and we'll just develop them concurrently at the same time, and we'll see what we end up with. So think about 3 concepts. I'm talking nonsense. Think about a concept, just one concept. Character wants to do something with their life. What is it that they want to do? And we'll take it from there. So go ahead, start dropping that into chat. Doesn't have to be a super long, literally. My character wants to get a sandwich. Okay, sure. That's the concept. We'll do that concept. That's absolutely fine. I've had players describe to me characters who, my character wants to find the greatest dish ever made and eat it. Okay, sure. Literally one of my players, who I'll be playing with tomorrow, sent me a thing saying, well, when I was young, my mother was sent to a convent because of something that she did. I want to find out what it is. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, sure. So let's see. Tales from Elsewhere says, someone who doesn't want to repeat the mistakes of their forebears. Oh, okay. That sounds like a character and a half. I'm just going to paraphrase here, doesn't want to repeat mistakes of 4 bears. Or 5 bears. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, with inflation these days, it probably is 5 bears by now, if not 6. Although interest rates are coming down in the UK, so, maybe it's only 3 bears. Yeah, I'll shut up now. All right, so that's a good example of something that's nice and vague. It does give us some interesting little hooks. What were the mistakes? Who were the 4 bears? And why doesn't this character want to repeat? Well, obviously he doesn't want to repeat the same mistake. I don't want to repeat the mistake of my father who... he liked to jump out of airplanes without parachutes. He only did it once, and, there we go. All right, we've got another one coming in from Adam. Adam says, Warlock who wants to free themselves from their pact, but the pact clearly states that it applies until she dies. Okay, so we've got some specifics in there, which would require some role-playing systems. So I'm going to remove the specifics, and I'm going to say someone who wants to be free of a pact. Someone who wants to be free of an unbreakable pact. Breakable pact. Great stuff. And I've been an absolute idiot. That's not what I wanted to do at all. I wanted to do them on separate pages. So, all right, someone, once again, who wants to be free of unbreakable pact. Right, and then the third option, we've got so many coming through here now, which is fantastic. Lance says, someone who wants to catalog powerful creatures and or characters. Okay, someone, that's it. We've got enough now. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Someone wants to catalog powerful creatures. or characters. Brilliant. Fantastic. 3 great concepts, which I think are really good. The rest of them that have come through, you have sent them through. Michael sent through someone who has lived with no ambition, wants to find that spark. Whoa, that hits close to home for so many reasons. It's a good one, absolutely. Dragon says, a noble who wants to bring back the glory of the past and the criminal scum that wants to ruin her reputation. Great idea. So here, lore. I don't know how to do the umlauts above it. Well, the double, the things confuse my little brain. The character wants to collect all the pieces of the armor from a legendary holy knight. The pieces were scattered around the country. That's quite specific in terms of armor knights. We can still, we can generify that, absolutely. Someone who wants to rid the world of monsters, says Alan. Absolutely. All of those totally viable. So we've got our 3, and this is about our journey of limitation. We are limiting ourselves down because at the moment we have infinite opportunities. We've just got 3 people who want these things. But how they're going to get them, what they are, where they're going, it's an infinite option. So we have absolutely no way of knowing what choice we make, if it's a good choice or a bad choice. We don't have anything to compare it with. So we need to reduce this down, and we're going to create some limits straight away. Law rhymes with the British title Sir. So Sir Lur? Lur? Is that right? Sir Lur? Sir Lur? All right, I'll take it. Still created based on maps. To do that in another video, please. Hunter Murphy Law, I think you've just joined because I do have a map ready to go. In case we get that far. There's the map there. I see someone there. Well, how about an aged scholar with one ear and a penchant for touching books inappropriately? No, this is not acceptable in the slightest. Of course it's acceptable. Absolutely. So, right. All of these great ideas, we're going to constrain ourselves down, and the easiest way to start with that is with the role-playing system that we're going to be playing. Because now we need to start refining things. It doesn't necessarily give us all the steps, but we're going to refine it. So, the first 3 role-playing systems, if you please, and I'm going to choose 3 role-playing systems from 3 very different spaces. So, if we get Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Mage Hunter, and Savage Worlds fantasy, it'll only be one of those because they're all fantasy, right? Correct. Close to lure someone into a dangerous situation. Okay. Lear. Okay. All right. So the very first option is Mage Hunter. Second option is Cyberpunk. And then we've got Call of Cthulhu. Okay, great stuff. Right, so I'm just going to literally apply those as we go. So we're on Mage Hunter. We're on Cyberpunk. And we are on Call of Cthulhu. Oh, how very interesting these things have worked out. Call of Cthulhu. And it was only the other day that my editor pointed out that I don't know how to spell Cthulhu. There's more H's in Cthulhu than you might think. Kids on Brooms, nice example. Cypher, Claim the Sky, Monster of the Week. Bunnies and Burrows, that's an interesting one. Haven't come across that one. Vampire the Masquerade, says Link the Vampire. I wish we could do all of these, but hey, there's always next week because we're doing it for the entire month of November. So now we've got Mage Hunter. Mage Hunter is set in a generic fantasy. You can set it in any fantasy setting that you like. So it kind of helps us, but it also kind of doesn't help us. Mage Hunter, all of the characters, they can create whatever backstories they like, but they do have to choose a single discipline. Same as choosing a class. It's an area that they have specialized in terms of learning. So we need to think about a class. What class would this character be within the TTRPG, within Mage Hunter? So this is for the worst one. This is the first one, not the worst one, the first one who says they don't want to repeat the mistakes of their forebears. What type of character are they? Are they magician? Are they cleric? Are they druid? Are they fighter? Are they warrior? I'm going to let you throw up whatever option you like there. We're going to do exactly the same thing for Cyberpunk. Someone who wants to be free of an unbreakable pact. So in Cyberpunk, of course, it's near future, isn't it? What career path is that individual following? So throw in a career path there, modern day career path. Hacking obviously is one of them. Slicer, depends on what terminology you want to use. Government agent, law enforcement, coder, you name it, you add to it. And then the Call of Cthulhu one is exactly the same. Detective, professor, explorer, librarian. This is for someone who wants to catalog powerful creatures and or characters. How very interesting is that? Unbreakable Pact would almost be better with Shadowrun instead of just Cyberpunk. Well, Z3, I agree with you to a degree. The joy of this process is we're taking the concept and then we're trying to fit it into the system that we're playing in. Would it be better in Shadowrun? For sure. Would it be better in the D20 modern with the Arcana, modern Arcana added to it? It could also work there as well. It could obviously also work in a fantasy setting or in a science fiction setting, but it is by creating these constraints and forcing ourselves to sit within those constraints that's when we start to become creative. If we can just change everything however we please, we, as the creators, we're not going on a journey of difficulty. We're not struggling to create these characters. And I know it sounds weird. It's like, well, why should I struggle to create a character? If this book is about struggle, then what's the point? It's not about the insurmountable struggle. It's about saying, okay, how do we fit this into that space? Right, hopefully that makes sense. Cthulhu says MJ Larkin, absolutely. Right, start over. I hate to be the late player. Thatchy Miles says. So Kyle says, a system operator working for a megacorp wants to break their employment contract after discovering something unforgivable about their employer. I mean, Kyle, that's a great start. I think you're leaping ahead a little bit. We're just looking for the occupation at the moment. So I don't see any occupations actually coming through. Robocop's robot hoverchild. Okay, could work. Do you know who had great struggle suggestions? Chairman Mao. He had some wild ideas, but was right about landlords. If you are one of my tenants, your rent's just gone up. Right, Unbreakable Pact. Okay, so you're focused there. You're focused there. We've got Netrunner is Adam's suggestion. So Cyberpunk, we're going to say they're a Netrunner. Okay, so sort of a hacker, someone along those lines. I see you guys are already running on that way, and that's good. I want you to carry on running on that way because I want you to see how this process might bring up something that you haven't thought about in a very different kind of way. We've got Diplomat, says Don Dave. I think that's how you pronounce it. So Diplomat. And I'm just going to assign that to the Mage Hunter, some sort of Diplomat. We've got a Netrunner, Hacker, and then we have for Call of Cthulhu. So how about a classic Mad Scientist for Call of Cthulhu? Okay, Call of Cthulhu it is. Right, so what was it? Mad Scientist. So, well, I'm going to remove the mad for now. I'm just going to say scientist. And they would actually be, what, a biologist, or if they're looking for creatures, an archanologist, perhaps, or an archobiologist, something to do with arcane creatures. No one believes them, you know. You could say Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was exactly that. He went around convinced that fairies existed, and he went and looked for fairies all over the place. So he was technically an archobiologist, looking for these mythical creatures, or a mythobiologist. That could be an interesting one to explore. Mage Hunter, we've gone with Diplomat. Right, that's fantastic. Okay, so that's one of the constraints. We've got to then look at this character and say, okay, well, they don't want to repeat the mistakes of their forebears. That's the Diplomat. What are they going to be avoiding as a diplomat. Already, that choice of diplomat and someone who doesn't want to repeat the mistakes of the past, that's starting to suggest a lot of conflict for this character. This character became a diplomat to talk people down so they don't repeat the same mistakes. I mean, that's armchair 101 kind of character creation right there. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We are listing constraints. So our next one is then the genre. Now, I know we've said Mage Hunter. What's the genre of Mage Hunter? In what is the genre? Or you could also say the setting. What is the setting of Mage Hunter? And so here we're going to go to the map. We're going to go to the map. This is the map that I made. This is Arkenvale. Arkenvale, this is the main capital city. Arkenvale here, and then in the barren mountains we have Arkenhold Castle up here. There's a prison, Ulka prison up here. There's some elves in the forests over here. And then there's a giant dead dragon that died over 150 years ago, and the dragon's corpse is still mined to this day for magical bones, bits of flesh, the rather curious fat deposits on the dragon can be boiled down into a soap that cleans almost anything. And you've got little towns like Sarat, who exist exclusively to harvest the corpse of the dragon. Cliffloft. Cliffloft is all about bringing people up from the trench that the dragon carved when it collapsed into the ground. We've got a tomb over there. So this is a very classic kind of fantasy map. We're going to use that to help us in a little bit. Okay, so the genre for Mage Hunter is that. The genre for Cyberpunk is Cyberpunk. It's a genre on its own, so that's absolutely fine. And Call of Cthulhu, the genre is the Cthulhu genre. That means there are going to be weird and wonderful creatures from alternate dimensions coming through. So we're golden there. Species. Now, in Mage Hunter, we have all of the classic species that you would find in fantasy, plus a few others. So go ahead, and if you are not already busy working on your ideas, go ahead and drop in a couple fantasy species that we could use for this Mage Hunter character, this diplomat who doesn't want to repeat the mistakes of their forebears. I'm already going to say you cannot choose human because that's where Cyberpunk and Call of Cthulhu get us. In Cyberpunk, I think we need to decide that is our Netrunner hacker who wants to be free of an unbreakable pact, how augmented are they with cybernetics? How many inserts? Are they even human? Are they an AI who lives in this space? Is the unbreakable pact the fact that this AI is a program? You think that's a crazy idea? Look at Star Trek Voyager. The EMH is literally a computer program who spends his whole life trying to escape from the medical bay and be a regular human. So it's an interesting premise. And Call of Cthulhu, you kind of have to be human because that was the thing, unless I'm completely wrong. Okay, so a long-lived species makes sense to me for this one. So dwarf, gnome, elf, someone who can live with regret and legacy for longer. That's a good idea. And it's a good example of how working through your concept and creating these limitations for yourself starts to send you in specific directions. When you first look at that, doesn't want to repeat the mistakes of their forebears, you're like, well, it could be anybody. Now you're going, oh, but an elf would remember the mistakes of generations. And that makes it a more interesting story. Whereas perhaps a short-lived race like the humans, well, they're only going to remember one generation back. So it's not that much of a burden. Do you see now how we can then compare the two ideas? And we can see which one is more interesting to us as the creator. Is the human idea interesting, where they are literally, I don't want to repeat the mistake of 40 years ago, 30 years ago? Or is it an elf who doesn't want to repeat a mistake from 600 years ago and that no one remembers except for the elves? Which one is more interesting to you? Again, we're not committed here. We are just playing around with ideas. But we couldn't have been able to compare the elf and the human idea to begin with if we didn't have the original concept. So I think that that is something that we're going to go with because it was suggested. So let's go with dwarf because that makes sense in my head. The cyberpunk suggestion here is a sentient Big Mac with pasta legs. I don't know anything about this system, what it's called, and really what we're doing. I'm just glad to be here and be part of the community. Okay, well, you're welcome to hang in there and ask questions as you try and make sense of what we're doing. The elf is a comedic premise. I'm the only one who cares about this. Is very hard to do dramatically. Sure, well, that's why we've gone with dwarf. So there's dwarves and elves will remember this. Okay, I don't see anything, any decisions made there. So that's fine. So with the cyberpunk thing, I'm going to say that they are half cyborg because I think that makes it more interesting. Half cyborg and half AI. Let's do that because I think that will work. And then for our Call of Cthulhu, our mad scientist is a human. We don't have to go any further than that. Next up on our list, we need to choose the era. Now, this doesn't make a huge difference in cyberpunk. It is the near future. It's important for us to remember this. We can break it one step further and say, is it the near future on this planet, or is it the near future on the moon or on Mars? Because I think we can see that Elon Musk is definitely going to try and get to Mars in the next 4 years, or at least get lots of government funding to pay for him to try and get to Mars for various reasons. I don't know where that idea came from. But so what do we think? Where is the cyberpunk? Is it on Earth? Is it on Mars? Is it on the moon? Is it on a colony in between all three? Where is the cyberpunk one? The era in Mage Hunter, that is just the fantasy space. So it's a medieval sort of space, okay? And then in Cthulhu, Cthulhu is an interesting one because Cthulhu can play out on all sorts of things. Modiphius has got the Kors Cthulhu, which is set in the Roman time period. I'm very much looking forward to that, by the way. They've also got Achtung Cthulhu, which is 1940s Cthulhu, Adolf Hitler and that kind of thing. And then we've got the classic 1890s Cthulhu, and then 1920s Cthulhu, 1960s Cthulhu. So you tell me what kind of era are we in Cthulhu? Great Depression, just before the war, just after the war, 1950s, 1960s? You guys tell me. It's a colony on Mars. I like that. I'm going to go with Mars. Mars colony. Okay, good. Good. And now a telly. I'm tired and in the airport. Well, you know what? Oh my. Adam says, I haven't heard much about 80s Cthulhu. I would invite you to explore Stranger Things. I think Free Press, was it Free Press, did a role-playing system on Stranger Things, which is 1980s Cthulhu, right down to the absolute day. It's the 1980s Cthulhu. So you know what? You were the first one to reference Cthulhu. So we're going to say 1980s. Adam coming in there with the 1960s, Summer of Love. Yeah, sticking it to the man. 1960s, 1950s, says Eric, Age of the Atom Bomb. Well, we've said 80s, so we're going to go with 1980s. Okay, 1980s. I'm sensing conspiracy theorist here. Bigfoot is real. Loch Ness is real. These are real creatures, real things. I think that could be interesting to start exploring. So let's see. Right, so that's era. Tone. Tone is next. Now, tone is literally what is the tone that the GM has set. And if you don't know, you go, GM, what's the tone? You should, as a group in session 0, have sat down and discussed the tone, because if the GM has said, well, the tone is going to be very dark and depressing and miserable. Okay, fair. We need to know this going in. But if the GM is like, no, you know what? I want this to be more like a musical. I want this to play as a musical. So let's do it as a musical. And you're like, okay. Are we talking Rent? Are we talking Annie? Are we talking Sound of Music musicals, where we go from slightly dark and serious, but in a lighthearted way, to all the way just to craziness? Are we talking, say, Hello Dolly? I mean, where are we? So tone is important. Tone is very, very important. So let's see. I see Eric is just joining them all together. Bigfoot is actually real and is from Mars. Musical fits 1980s better. Right. So I think what we have ended up with is the tone for the Call of Cthulhu. Musithulu. We're going to go with musical. We're going to go with musical, and we're going to go with lighthearted. And you know what comes to mind? There is a musical, as far as I'm concerned, that has very Cthulhu elements to it, but is 1970s. So if you are an old person, or if you just happen to love musicals, what musical from the 1970s, I think it was the 70s, could even be the 60s. I'm not that old, you see. What musical from the 60s or 70s involved aliens, music, and a somewhat grim Cthulhu-esque element to it? And so you think about that. What is the tone Major Hunt Diplomat evokes Claire Danes in Homeland, a very political show? I like Claire Danes. Homeland, I haven't seen Homeland, but it's a political show. Right, so we're going to do that. We're going to do a political, the tone is political, and I'm assuming it's all about backstabbing and maneuvering and that sort of thing. I'm assuming, especially with a name like Homeland. Little Shop of Horrors, Jason, you are close, but you are, I mean, technically it's kind of Cthulhu-esque, this plant monster that comes to life. I would give that to you, but this came out before that. Little Shop of Horrors is a very good guess. Adam Ultraberg, Starlight Express, a bit more science fiction than Cthulhu. There is something very specific. Very, very, very specific. And all I'm going to say is that it could just be a step to the left, or you put your foot to the right. But that's something for you to think about. In an episode of Space 1999, Brian Bless played a cult leader on Frozen Planet where a stranded human spacecraft crew were forced to settle. Yeah, that's pretty creepy. We're looking for the tone now for cyberpunk. We've got the tone for Mage Hunter. That's going to be political maneuvering. We've got the tone for Call of Cthulhu, musical, lighthearted. And so now we're just waiting for cyberpunk. There we go. Laura Bones got there. Rocky Horror Picture Show. Absolutely, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. If that isn't Cthulhu, I don't know what. Just a bunch of transsexuals from Transylvania, the planet Transylvania, I forget. I don't remember the exact story. I only watched it once to see what all the fuss was about. But that would be Cthulhu, in my opinion. And there's a musical that involves it. So we've got some kind of reference point. Right, tone for cyberpunk, where we have a half cyborg, half AI who wants to escape an unbroken pact. That is what we... Cyber noir, says Kyle, straight out the gate. And you know what? We're going to go with it. Cyber noir. I mean, that is leaning directly into one of cyberpunk's main themes is cyber noir, of course. So lovely. People are just trying to get along and get paid, says Adam. I couldn't agree more. Cyber Rococo, Cyber Blanca. All right, well, we've got our tone. Next up, we need to now choose the gender of these characters. In some cases, it won't make any difference whatsoever. In others, it will make a difference. And the 1980s one, I think, is one of the ones that's going to make the biggest difference. So here we go. Joker 2, Grim Dark Musical. Perfect example of musicals that step outside of their bounds. Right, so the gender, please, for Mage Hunter. Fantasy, dwarf. I mean, by dwarf already the gender starts to become an interesting negotiation to see what's underneath that large beard. And chainmail and axe and helmet, I suppose, if you're going with the classic dwarf. But, oh, I see Adam has got female dwarf, male mad scientist. Laura Bones is already starting to write the musical. It was a rainy night when the cyborg dame walked into my office. Not musical, that's the noir, isn't it? Non-binary robot AI who says they are too good for gender. That is a nice specific, which I'm going to absolutely steal. So non-binary, too good for gender, which is interesting. I mean, Alexa can be set to a manly voice or to the Alexa voice. And sometimes she forgets what voice she should be doing. At least she does in my house anyway. Right, so what else have we got here? We've got female dwarf. A couple of folks have said dwarf. Female feels right to me. Okay, great. So we've got a female dwarf who regrets, does not want to repeat the mistake of her forebears. And so that just means our musical call of Cthulhu. What is it? Musical call of Cthulhu. Male or female? This is the 1980s. Male or female? And so, as an example, 1980s, things were starting to change. Things were starting to change, weren't they? There were power suits for women with big, broad shoulders that allowed them to look more warrior-like, more Klingon-like, really. You've got TV shows like Designing Women. It's big hair and it's bold and it's suits and it's pants of power. So there was that sort of liberation, if you will, but still not. So that would make the female scientist who wants to catalog creative creatures. It's an interesting one. At the same time, if we go with the male character, they want to catalog powerful creatures. That could be interesting too. We don't know their personalities yet. We don't know anything along those lines. Hair metal dude with eyeliner. Interesting. Eyeliner. A goth or a metal dude who happens to be a scientist. I mean, it's unique enough that I think it's interesting to explore. So we're going to say a metalhead. A metalhead male who happens to like crazy creatures. So I'm kind of getting a sense of someone who maybe has a whole bunch of weird animals. Like they've got a python and they've got a bearded dragon and they've got these unusual creatures that they keep. They happen to be working as a scientist. They could be a biologist. They could be a botanist. It doesn't really matter anymore. But this is what is starting to work through my head. For the mad scientist, I love the idea of him being a schemer like Dorothy's ex-husband in Golden Girls. Wow, Stanley? You want him to be like Stanley? I mean, that could work. It could also be Mr. Roper from the Ropers series, also set in that sort of same time period. It could be Jack Tripper from Three's Company. I mean, wow, we are going back to the 80s in a big way. But there we go. What if he collects bugs instead, says KB? Yeah. What about bugs? I mean, maybe he happens to be an arachnophile or he just really likes bugs. So a lepidopterist, he likes butterflies. Could work. A lepidopterist metalhead. Now that's an interesting one. Why would a metalhead like butterflies? Because the wings of the butterflies that beat here will cause a hurricane in the Bay of Biscay. I don't know where hurricanes can form. He built his own amps. Sure. I mean, do you see, folks, how by just working through these few little steps, we're already starting to get some interesting characters, but we don't yet have the character. We don't even have, well, we've got nothing yet. We've just got these really cool ideas, and we can start to link things together. We couldn't link anything together before we had just these basic things, and that's the premise. That's the idea. So once we're done with that, we now start to how can I put it? We now start to build in the basics, because this is enough for us for most role-playing games to be able to start to look at the mechanics, because we have to be aware that mechanics are a thing. We need to work within the mechanics. There is absolutely no point in going, okay, cool, we've got this non-gender, they're not even non-binary, this is non-gender because they refuse to have a gender, half AI, half cyborg netrunner. Okay, great. Does the role-playing system that we are playing, does that allow us to create a netrunner character? Do they have to have specific attributes? Are those attributes going to influence us in terms of our character creation moving forward, or are they not going to influence us in the slightest? So if you look at Mage Hunter, for example, Mage Hunter, the entire character creation process is about building up the history of this character and going on a journey of character creation. Same with things like Traveler, for example. So that's one approach. Call of Cthulhu, we might be, I don't think we're going to be stuck trying to create a scientist character. Metalhead, I don't see how that's going to impact the rules at all. We might go, oh, well, they need to have music as a skill, or they might need to have some kind of technical skill or musical knowledge or general knowledge. So there is that. So once we've looked at the base mechanics and made sure that we can create these characters, we're not yet going to delve in and go, okay, right, let's assign 5 to strength, 3 to this, 4 to that, or whatever the system might be. It's just about looking at it and saying, okay, are we within the safe space of the TTRPG? Is there room? Is there latitude? When you look at things, and you're going to see videos coming out on the channel over the next couple of weeks, when you look at some role-playing systems, there's very little latitude. Excuse me. You are constrained to doing this, or that. And you have to have these, and you have to have those sort of things. So that's something to work. Now, I, personally, these characters have no personality. They've got nothing. They don't have a history. We're going to get to building that. They don't have a personality. They've got a goal, which is nebulous at the moment. We need to fill in that detail before we go any further, before we do any other mechanics. And this is where, I don't know, I seem to be in the minority here. And I don't understand why. And this is something that maybe you could help me with. I like to give the character a name. Because at the moment, we've got the diplomat dwarf who doesn't want to repeat her mistakes. We've got they AI who wants to break a pact. And we have this male metalhead scientist. I can't connect with the character until they have a name. And if we go, okay, well, the Mage Hunter's name, they're dwarf, so we're going to call them Glod. The Cyberpunk, we're going to call them One. And the Call of Cthulhu scientist, we're going to call Bob. Bob, One, and whatever I said for the dwarf, Glod, means nothing. There is no value to that whatsoever. I don't have any connection with that. I need a name so that I can start talking to this character and I can start asking questions of this character. A lot of folks that I have spoken to, they're like, oh, no, the name is always the last thing that I do. Okay, sure. So how do you connect with the character whilst you're creating the character? Or for you, is it a dispassionate experience where you are not connecting with the character? I would love to know. I would love to know. A non-binary robot named One. Well, again, I was literally just throwing out bad examples of names. They is a great name for the AI non-gender. Well, TH3Y could be, if you want to really go down that route, they, or them, I mean, depending. So that's just me. So where do you start with your name? Do you do it first, or sort of almost first, or do you do it last? And how do you connect to the character? Those are questions that I find very, very interesting, because no one can really give me an answer that just feels right for them to do the name at the very end. I often come up with the names first and see where it takes me before any other story items. Well, there, Tales from Elsewhere. There we go. Thank you. So I'm not alone then. I'm not this weird individual who needs to have the names first. So when it comes to names, there are a lot of different processes to coming up with the names. I have got multiple videos on the channel on how I come up with names. I'm going to let you come up with those names while I take this polo neck off, because it's getting really hot in the studio, because I forgot to turn the heater off before I started the broadcast, and it's getting quite warm. TH4Y says Eric. They. Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a cool way of writing it. We've got the species, we've got the class, and then the name. Then everything else says Anna Wild. There we go. Absolutely. So names do come in there. Baby name sites are very useful for Earth-based games and non-Earth-based games as well. I absolutely agree with you. The name tends to come to me after a while. Either I go for a word, what does this mean in language X, Y, or Z? And sometimes I mix and match, absolutely. So the dwarf, Tales from Elsewhere, has given us a very strong name, Estrix Brittlebreak. Okay, I think that's great. Keep coming up with those ideas. Right, scene change, costume change, and we're all good to go. Whew, it is toasty. Right. Unless anyone has got a very, very different suggestion, I love that. Estrix Brittlebreak. So Estrix. Right. Nice to meet you, Estrix Brittlebreak. I'm not sure how you came up with that name. I have some suspicions. But that's brilliant. Estrix Brittlebreak. And the Brittlebreak could refer back to the mistakes of the forebears. Perhaps she inherited the name Brittlebreak because her father's father was a smith who made an axe or a breastplate for the king. But the breastplate, because of a flaw that the father's father didn't know about, it shattered like glass. It was brittle and it broke. And then the king was slain in battle against the elves or whoever it was. That is a possibility. It wasn't a possibility until we came up with the name. So we've got Estrix Brittlebreak. So that's quite fun. It's also fun to say. We're going to go with they, TH4Y. They is for our cyberpunk character, and then for our Call of Cthulhu character, who are we going to go with? What is their name? Dr. Evan Rock. Evan Rock. I mean, it is a musical. Evan Rock. It could also be Albert Fish. So then his name would be Elfish. Trying to bring back the good times. But that's not rock and roll. That's not heavy metal, is it? So that joke doesn't work. Okay, sure. So let's go back to getting on a plane. Have fun, Mac bastards. Same to you. Good luck with the flight. Remember to flap. You know what? Evan Rock, I think, is great. Dr. Rock works quite well. I'm going to drop the 1K because I don't see the need for it. It is a musical, but it's just Evan Rock. Great. Lovely. Do you want simplistic names for musicals? Things that rhyme with a lot of things? Well, again, look at that. It's an interesting question that you are asking there, Adam. Well, Bevan, living the life of Evan. Rock, clock, doc. I mean, rock is going to really work. So I think we're okay there. We might think of a middle name as well, something that everybody who knows him calls him by, something like that. I would be even more fun as a DM to roll out that little name conspiracy stuff into the story. Maybe Estrix eventually finds out the breastplate her grandpa made was messed up or cursed. Sure. Absolutely. Oh, darn it. I just thought of Dr. Steele. Sure. I mean, Evan Rock or Evan Steele. Absolutely. Okay, well, we've got our names. And that's all that we really needed at this point in time. One of the things that names do is they should start to give you a sense of personality. And when you look at the name Estrix, what does Estrix sound like? Is Estrix the name of a dwarvish female? Is it a strong name? Is it a weak name? Does it work? Is it Estrix or should it be Esther, which of course is a real name, or Asta? Not Asterix, of course, but Estrix. The Ix, of course, often used in English as a suffix to change male into female. So dominator, dominatrix. So the Trix part works really well. Her nickname could be Trix. Friends could call her Trix. What sort of personality does that inspire in you? Estrix. What does little Estrix like to do? What did she like to do when she was growing up? What does she do now as a diplomat in this political backstabbing? Miss Brittlebrake will take the floor. How is she going to comport herself? What is she going to be doing? Estrix brings up to mind some sort of Discworld character. Names ending in X imply a sort of disciplined precision, says Adam. Estrix gives me crane vibes. Okay, interesting. I was inspired by Vercingetorix for the name. There you go. I know butchering that spelling, Vercingetorix. Well, of course, we knew who Vercingetorix was. Anyway, thorn in the side for the Romans until eventually was defeated and, nobly killed. So Estrix, absolutely. German word for screed. Estrix, interesting. Okay, I'll take your word for it. Personality-wise, I think we're kind of getting a feeling of someone who is strong, focused, who is disciplined, and a crane. When you say crane, Michael Carter-Wright, do you mean like a bird, the crane, very tall, very beak-nosed? Could go that way. Brittlebrake, or is it brittle beak, as her adversaries might mean? So let's say, so she's structured, she's disciplined, possibly, and sort of crane-like. I think that could work. And then what was the other thing? Maybe a little dark. Reminds me of the name Astrid. Sure, Astrid, if you think Astrid is dark to you. A little feels decisive to me. Okay, decisive. We'll put in decisive. So Estrix Brittlebrake, and we might need to change that, by the way. Do you notice how easily I can say Estrix Brittlebrake? It does require you. I challenge you to do it wherever you are sitting right now. Just say it out loud. Estrix Brittlebrake. There's a lot of sounds in there. Estrix Brittlebrake. So it means that when you are playing this character, please introduce a character. Hi, I'm Estrix Brittlebrake. If you don't have your elocution lessons, you might struggle to pronounce every single one of the syllables in that particular name. As a result, we might need to change it. So if it was Estrix, it's the X to the brittle, I think. Estrix Battlebrake. That's easier for me to say. Estrix Battlebrake. Estrix Breaker. Estrix Brittle. Estrix Broke. Estrix Brokewell. Could be something like that. Could absolutely see her with the nickname Stricky, Sticky, yeah, something like that. I played a ranger named Ecatl, who wielded a Macatl. I love it. Estrix Breakbone. Breakbone could work instead of Brittlebrake. Brittlebrake is fun to say, but not after Estrix. Estrix Breakbone. I'm going to do that. I think that works. Estrix Breakbone. Okay, it gives her a reputation. She breaks people. I mean, I'm not going to say the other thing that uses the second half of that name of what she does to people. So she's structured, she's disciplined, she's crane-like, and she is decisive. And she sounds powerful. Breakbone, there is definitely a power there. And the breakbone could still be the armor that her great-great-grandfather made broke, and the king's arm broke, and the bone broke, and so breakbone could be there. Something along those lines. I like that. Okay, let's look then and turn our attention to the name they, TH4Y, which they will say that my name is they, and you can call me they or them. And so you go, all right, TH4Y. What sort of personality does a TH4Y sound like it has? To me, it doesn't sound like it's got a huge amount of personality. TH4Y, why have you not yet completed cleaning out the vacuum seal ducts on deck 59, or TH4Y as our medical bot. No, we know that they are a hacker. So the TH4Y unit is designed to be able to interface with almost any kind of computer that we have on the station. They act as a go-between in case you need to do some complicated calculations and things. It has a classic droid constructed Star Wars vibe. Absolutely. Remember, they are half cyborg, so they were human once, and then they've had AI implants to turn them more into an AI kind of space. Innocent young, maybe they were made recently. I'm just imagining Marvin from The Hitchhiker's Guide. Sure. TH4Y. Innocent, young, designed, modified to be an idealist. They are an idealist, except they're too good for gender, which is probably why TH4Y needs to be reserviced. Maybe that's the pact they're trying to get out of. But we're kind of picking up the designed, modified, idealist, innocent, young. So I'm going to put those down. I'm going to say innocent, young, designed. But I'm also thinking that they have an original human name. Remember how important RoboCop was when he was called Murphy? For sure. Absolutely. Something to think about. And what a great type of decision to have to make. It's like, well, what was their original human name? I mean, it could be something like, maybe they were non-binary. So it could be something like Sam. And then their surname could be anything. If you want to tie it in, it could be something like, let's say Sam White, because we're in a cyber noir environment. I don't know. They is an anagram for the former name, says Dragon. Look at you being all creative. So what would the anagram be of THAY? Yath. No, that doesn't work as a name. Okay, well, you came up with it. Chris Hart could be a name. TH4Y sounds rebellious, given that they pronounce it as they. Sure. I like the idea that it's an anagram. So we're going to work on that one. Well, some of you are going to work on that one. I don't have the brain power for it. Dr. Evan Rock. What kind of person is Evan Rock? A metalhead, but remember, it's the name, Evan. Evan is not a particular, no offense to anyone named Evan. Evan is not a necessarily strong name. It doesn't have lots of hard consonants in it, right? Thomas Havarti, the fourth Lord of Youngston, says Dragon. That's an interesting idea. It's not a bad, then it would just be an acronym. But that's fine. That could work. That could work. Tom Havarti. Yeah. We can think about that. Maybe there were Theodore Harrison, Arthur Yamel. No, it could be. Not an anagram, but could still work. Absolutely. Arthi or Carthy, drop the C. Or Kathy, not Carthy, Kathy. I like working backwards off the acronyms in cases like this. Transformed human, for connection, yellow class. Absolutely. Beautiful. Beautiful. Dr. Rock is the name you demand to be called. Yes. Yes. These ana words are confusing. Anagram, amalgam, absolutely. Mercy, anagram. Oh, anagram, yeah. Evan sounds to me like a poet. Well, that could be interesting. So a poet who likes heavy metal because he thinks that heavy metal is poetic. There is a sense of poetry in heavy metal, for sure. I won't dispute that. Heavy metal has got some great orchestration music in there as well. I do like the idea that rock does certainly sound like the name that you would want to be called, but maybe not necessarily is your name. So what if it was like Rokov or Rockenberg or Rockelstein, and he just contracts it to rock because it sounds way cooler. Could be something like that. Right, this is the 1980s. Rockenberg. Poet. What else do we get from the name Evan? Evan Rock. He is probably like Evan Nguyen. Who is Evan Nguyen? I'm going to ask. KB says roster. Yes, roster. Okay, I have a name to go to. I have a game to go to. Laura Bones, enjoy your game. Yep, we are out of time for tonight, so have fun. He moved to Miami to join a band and got caught up when he saw the mythos. Rocklington, yeah, or Rockling. Or Rockton, I suppose, could work as well, Rockton. But let's think about this. Poet. Is Evan Rock someone who is going to be very violent? Or are they more of a passive kind of person? Is an Evan the type that gets arrested and sent to prison for drunken disorderly conduct? Or is an Evan the kind who gets looked over for promotions and is forgotten about? Anna Wild says, no, calm, steady. I do feel like the persona is, on the surface, this calm, collected individual. Adam is making a good point. If your name is mispronounced all the time, making a fake one is great. Absolutely. I know a lot of folks here in the UK have got names that they know that the British can pronounce, even though it's not their name. They're like, yeah, but there's no point in someone trying to pronounce my name. Let's change it and use a contracted version. Sure. Maybe not violent, but absolutely headstrong, says KB. Evan Rock. Well, the rock part, I agree with you. Headstrong. So let's say stubborn, but also calm. And what was the other word that we said? Steady. Okay, that's brilliant. So what about then some sort of Polish rock Stakinstewicz, something like that. Rock Stinskewicz. I'll have to ask someone who's from Poland, and that's lucky that I happen to have married one, so we can find that out. So then they're just contracted. Oh, I'm Dr. Rock. Rockiech, says Anna Wild. Yeah, or Roshiech. Yeah, absolutely. So that could work. That could work. I mean, Loud Grace says, yes, his name is Evan Nguyen, but he gave himself rock on so that he can rock on instead to musical rock, spelled that way in honor of Dokken. Okay, there we go. Rockinski, says Zorgrim. Sure. I mean, all of these are great suggestions. We have come to the end of our time today, and with regards to the character, I think we've done some great work here. Evan, they, and Estrix are now starting to look like real characters. We haven't finished our journey yet. We've still got some more to go. But we are nearly there. We're nearly there. We've had some fun doing it. I know that we said we would look at using maps as a means to create characters. We can certainly do that for the Mage Hunter. As I said, I have a map here that we can work with next week to do that exact thing with. So I'm going to leave you now. Again, thank you for the stream and for being here and for your amazing suggestions and working through this whole process. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I think we've got some really great characters here. And I will be back next week, Friday. Same channel, same time, same place, all the usual bits and bobs. Remember to hit that like button before you leave, if you please. Doesn't take 2 seconds just to smack that like button. And it means the world for the channel. Until next week, however, I want to say a big thank you to Laura Bones. I know she's already left. She's our moderator. And if you haven't yet looked at our Kickstarter, the reason why all of these videos are on, there is a link for the Kickstarter, I believe. And we can take it from there. Until next time, however, I wish you and yours the happiest of gaming.